Hello and welcome back to A Splash of Paint, where it's time to rejoin popular pencil magician Malcolm Cudmore as he opens up his colourful box of tricks to demonstrate how you can work quickly to produce simple yet stunning results in part 2 of today's Try Your Hand At project.
Oh, welcome back. So I'm just under halfway through a rather quick, sketchy coloured pencil picture of a rather small still life that I've set up in one of my shadow box corners. During the first part of the session, I quickly did the drawing, and this is not an exercise in measured drawing. It was simply for me to get everything in pretty well the right place, and also to begin to establish my main tonal values, which I've done. And all of the underdrawing work was done with a burnt umber pencil, coloured pencil. It's a regular wax-based coloured pencil. It's not water soluble, not that it really matters. It's just a regular coloured pencil. And I'm just clarifying just a little bit of the drawing here, just to tighten up some of these edges, and I'm going to start using some additional colours. Now, traditionally, of course, coloured pencil work involves layering one colour on top of another ad infinitum until you build up the richness that you want. You'll notice that my marks here are really very loose, designed simply to give an indication of the major sort of tonal groups, the value groups. As time permits, I shall sharpen up some of the edges, maybe try and lose a few of the others, just clarify a bit of the drawing. And I'm not taking all of the scene, as it were, scenery around these two bits of fruit. I'm simply trying to get everything correctly established. And I'm going to start layering my colours. Now, I'm a bit of a creature of habit, and I have discovered, after a lot of work and experimentation, that the combination of burnt umber and ultramarine, or another reasonably dark to neutral blue, does give me a really nice, what I'll call a colour grey. So having already built up some of these tonal values in what is almost like an old-fashioned sepia photograph now with this burnt umber pencil, I'm going to add a layer of ultramarine. It's going to have to be, of necessity, quite loose. So if I'm going to swap to an ultramarine pencil now, the action of putting ultramarine on top of burnt umber, oops, just broken the tip off the pencil there because I was going a bit hard, is going to make this brown more grey. And this is a fairly traditional mix. It's actually a mix of colours that I would probably use even in oil paint. Just helping me to send this really dark area even further back. And then I'm going to start applying some colour to the, applying a bit of colour to the pears themselves. I'm not at this stage really terribly bothered about the absolute accuracy of the colours. Oh, there we go. Now, I need to go a little bit darker down here as well, which means that the relationship of the brown to the blue, because there's less brown, but I'm putting quite a lot of blue on top of it, is going to work for me. So we'll go at these at the back here as well. Beginning to pay some attention to where objects actually touch their background. So where the stalk of this pear is actually making contact with the thing that it's leaning against, the shadow is at its most defined, it's at its sharpest. It will just very slightly loosen up as it gets further and further away from the object, which is actually casting the shadow. That's certainly true along the bottom edges here as well, where the base of the pear is actually in contact with the surface that it's resting on. Okay, so I'm just going to use an electric eraser to soften out some of the earlier looser drawing lines, because I have slightly clarified the shape of the pears, on both of them in fact. That's a little bit better. Get rid of those. Electric eraser is a fantastic tool for the coloured pencil artist. Gives you a really precise tool for erasing in really tightly defined areas. I shall, time willing, be using it again to soften up some of the texture of the pears. Now I'm going to start doing a bit of underpainting on the pears now, and I'm going to use quite a pale bright green just to render a bit of colour. The colour is of course adding value as well, and the only bit I'm going to leave is a little bit around here where I see a reflection of the light that's behind me. I see it as a sort of highlight on the pear where the colour is almost completely bleached out. That's one of the clues that tells me that this pear is a sort of a rounded object. Because I'm working quite loose, anything that's underneath this layer of colour will continue to show through, so the shadow area is going to get darker. Now, I know the pear isn't actually really quite as bright as this, although there are sort of flecks of colour. There's also a band of, loose band of reflected light sort of down this front edge of this pear. So in my underdrawing, I'm just going to leave some of that. In fact, I've actually put more in than I should have done. So I shall be getting in there with my electric eraser again, just to take a little bit of that back. There's a fringe of it along the top here. When I'm working in colour pencil, however much detail I'm working in, I use my electric eraser as a drawing implement as much as I do just to erase mistakes, as it were. This is a burnt carmine. It's a sort of browny dark red colour which I'm using to give me a bit more value and definition on the stalk here, and to make it stand away from its background a little bit. I'm going to do the same with this one, although this stalk is generally a little, almost disappears into the background. That's the value of the top edge of the stalk there. Little definition here. And I'm going to go back in now with a darker green colour to sort of reduce some of the intense. This is a mineral green, a kind of mid-green, sort of viridian kind of green, more of a bluey green compared to the last one. That's going to help increase the value on the shadow side of the pear, deepening it up. And around at the bottom here as well. Need to really tighten up this. Whoops! Tighten up this bottom edge. More haste, less speed. It's quite important that when you're rendering colour and value onto an object that's partly obscured by another one, for example, the base of this pear and the top of the pear are sort of bisected I should say, with the other pear that's sitting on top of it, that you pay attention to make sure both bits of the pear look as if they belong together. A little bit of colour there. And there's quite a lot of orangey yellow and brown in that pear as well, so I'm going to go back to my burnt carmine just to give a little bit more value here. It's really, because it's a sort of reddy brown, the combination of it with the green, it's almost like a complementary colour to it. So it increases the appearance of value. When you add any two complementary colours together on the colour wheel, you'll see that they kind of begin to neutralise each other, which is kind of what happens when you add the burnt carmine on top of the green. I'm racing along now, really loosely applying this colour. Go with the dark green as well here. the moment this pear is far too light, as is its stalk. So let's get a bit of colour into those as well. Slightly lighter colour there. Going back to my blue just to deepen the green. There's definitely a lot more shadow around this side here. Just sharpening up the edge here a little bit and rendering a little bit more value at this end of the pear as well. I'm going to make that highlighted area. I'm going to put a bit of yellow in there as well, give it a bit of warmth, and really look at the where are we? Burnt umber. I need to go back and add some value to the pear here, especially as it turns away underneath. So I'm using the combinations of colours, one on top of the other, to develop value as well as colour. The more layers of colour I put on, the darker the object's going to be. Now, I haven't got any time really to pay too much attention to the patterning in the colours. Just looking at how the layers of colour, one on top of the other, develop the value. And because I'm using a fairly limited number of colours of pencil, there's a sort of kind of unity to everything that's in this picture. Everything seems to kind of belong with everything else because the colours are unified, defining the edge here. And I've got a little bit of blue tack here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this to slightly soften the edge here where there's a little bit of shine to the sort of reflected light, appearance of reflected light on the front of the pear. There's lots more I could do to this. Could work on this for hours to come, and the longer I work, the more and more detailed the still life is going to be. But I've set myself a challenge of working quickly in a medium that normally you'd spend weeks on, layering coloured pencil, blending away the marks. This is deliberately very sketchy. I'm quite pleased with the marks as they've developed. And I think for the moment, as a sketch, I'm pretty happy with it, and I think I'm going to leave it there, just except for that little bit there. I'd like to encourage you to have a go with a precise medium light coloured pencil, but treat it loosely and enjoy the process.
Thanks, Malcolm. Nice to see how coloured pencils can create shadows, definition and depth. A great project for you to try. Why not have a go of adding as much detail as you want in the time that you have. Right, time for our final break now, folks, but join us in part 4 when we join resident bookworm Henry Malt as he delves into the SAA library in search of another inspirational book. And I'll be dipping into the Splashy Paint postbag to help answer a few more of your artistic questions. I'll see you soon.